Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Global Exclusive Podcast. This is episode 67, and this week we're going to be talking about the new Final Fantasy 15 unit, Cobalt Blade Noctis. It's just going to be a really fun unit that's not really like anything we've ever seen before in this game. Very unique and original, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun.
Yeah, everyone was so
Right?
worried that he was going to be element locked, and he isn't, so that's a super nice surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in all seriousness, they have actually done a decent bit to kind of differentiate them compared to JP.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good thing that Gumi did.
But we should start by talking about the unit that nobody cares about.
I care about her.
Why? Okay. Hold on.
We should start with the unit that nobody important cares about. Now, Shadow, tell us why you care about her.
Exactly. I really don't know.
She's the only important waifu in the game. So
it's the butt pose, isn't it? That's why you care, isn't it?
No. Forget Cindy. Forget Lunafreya. Forget Iris. Like Aranea is like the poster girl for the game.
So your reasoning is that she's hot.
Yes.
Well, okay.
Do I need a better reason?
No. But also, let me chain upon that. I also think she is the best female character in the game. Also, because like all other female characters are very stereotypical in Final Fantasy 15 and fucking dead boring. Aranea isn't. And she's kind of, spoiler, Final Fantasy 15, it's an old game, fuck you if you don't know it, but like she kind of goes from being an antagonist to a protagonist, I guess.
She's kind of the Beatrix of this game.
Yes, that's a very good comparison, actually. Yeah, she's kind of the Beatrix of this game. Yes,
and
yes,
I do agree
she's never
that...
evil. She's only duty bound, and then she realizes that, her duty sucks.
Yeah, say duty one more time. Okay, but I do enjoy. Her kid's kind of terrible though. Like she's worse than Edgar in every fashion.
Heck, I think she might be worse than Fang.
Yeah, she is actually. I think even with STMRs, Fang does better. Slightly.
That's a huge shame though, because they did pull off a TDH Dragoon with Mazurka really, really well, and now they just shit on Fang or on Aranea, I guess.
I wouldn't say really, really well. They pulled it off, but
as in Mazurka is good. Like despite being TDH,
okay.
That's the whole thing. She hits as hard as Edgar if you give her, or she hits harder if she also has the amp, right, or the weapon in peril.
Do you think
that's the good thing about her? But they didn't do that for Aranea, I guess.
Do you think that
again we're now seeing how hard and true dual wield NV based Dragoon should hit with Noctis and Ardyn? So
it's frustrating. I feel like with Aranea we're seeing kind of a return to the era when NVAs were just bad, just straight up worse than NVs in every single way. Like, it's not that she's completely useless, but she is clearly a downgrade from NVs and doesn't really have anything that she's great at. She bursts relatively hard, I guess, but anybody, like, if you look at the gear that she's using, even without STMRs, like, she wants a copy of Noctis' card. If you have Noctis, you're going to use Noctis.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's literally no... I think someone said this well. Was it you, Shadow, when you said it maybe in the Newsday podcast or something, where it's like the gear you need comes from units that you're going to use instead of this unit?
Oh, that was Sinzar, but yeah, that's
that
true.
Sinzar. Yeah.
And I kind of want to discuss slightly about like the design corner that Aelin put themselves into when jumps proc twice in TDW. Like, there's no way TDH jumpers will ever be viable like this in the current situation.
You mean except Mazurka, that actually works?
They could do it if they made it so that two-handed spears had better variants and gave like a fuck ton of jump damage.
Yeah, that's the only way. But if you gave a jumping mod like a crap ton of mods, wouldn't it just be better to equip a TDW on that unit, and then you would do that mods times twice? That's what I'm saying. It's that they kind of designed themselves into a corner.
Put the flag on those skills that makes them only hit once with dual wield.
Or that, yeah.
Yeah,
that doesn't work with jumps though. I don't know. Jumps have generally been a shit show in terms of like working properly, so it could be there's something there that's a problem. But
yeah.
Well, maybe they should fix that then.
I mean, it
TM
is
and
true.
STMR are not worth talking about.
Yeah, Well, they were like 5 years ago. Aranea's TMR was really good because it was jump damage on a TDH spear, and you used before TDW was a thing for no. It was always good. Like before TDW was a thing for Sid, this was the best weapon in the game for dragoons because it was two-handed and elementless and had jump damage on it.
Sorry, are you saying that Sid would have used this? What do you think Sid's STMR is?
Sid's STMR is windlock. That was the problem with that, and it didn't have jump damage on it.
Yeah, but being windlocked was not much of a problem back then because Sid didn't have an imbue.
Yeah, but
and this was an era when imbues were like kind of rare.
I feel like talking about something that happened literally 50 years ago doesn't make any sense to us right now.
True. Yeah. No, it is worthless. Like now, today, you don't need this. Like this is the shittiest weapon ever, unfortunately.
Yeah. So Aranea is a finisher that's anybody that has her probably has someone better and is not going to use it.
Or we'll get someone better soon.
Yeah.
It is sad. Like, I would still like when they... I mean, if they're at least putting effort into creating NVA versions of units, like, give them at least a niche, give them at least something. I don't know.
There's one thing about her that's maybe a little bit worth mentioning, which is that in her shift, she has 200% killers for demons, machines, and undead. Which, like, if it's Dark Visions and you're trying to gear, like, your 3rd or 4th damage dealer, having that many innate killers is significant. But it's still not.
Yeah, we're really amazing. Reaching for straws, because, like, there could be units with less killers that could still have damager, kind of. Or, well, I mean, okay, 200 killers is good, but...
Yeah, and she's...
You could use her for spear-breaking Ymir.
There's that.
And she has an area effect that increases attack, so... Like, that could be mildly
like 25%.
Yeah, it's not much, but still, like, for a unit that has, 400-something base attack with a card, that's about 100 attack, which is not nothing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Sinzar did say on the Newsday pod that he felt like, okay, I don't know if this is much, but he had seen a lot of clears using Aranea for that 25%. So I'm guessing, like, when we get into the power creep and you get some really big damage dealers, then it might actually make sense to put Aranea there just for that 25%, because all the other units are going to do more than what you lost from having a 5th damage dealer that's subpar.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it. Let's fucking move on. This is so boring. Like, there's
so up next,
nothing to say.
We have Cobalt Blade Noctis.
See, you joke, but this would have made sense in JP, but I think in GL they've done enough to distinguish the two.
A little bit, yeah.
I actually do want to give them credit for this.
So, first off, I want to say, in JP, we're actually talking about Vermilion Blade Ardyn. In JP, Ardyn and Noctis were almost exact carbon copies of each other. Their only differences were they had different elements and different killers. But aside from that, they were exactly the same.
I mean, there's a couple of really minor things, like I think... Like, Ardyn can equip staves and rods.
Oh yeah, that's really important for any physical jumper.
Stuff.
They love that shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, the only really important things were elements and killers.
Well, yeah, and I think in JP, you might correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in JP, Ardyn didn't have a true Brave Shift. So that was probably the biggest practical difference.
It was like one worse.
So,
Wait, what's a true Brave Shift?
It's where there's no cooldown on the shift, so you can just swap back and forth anytime you want.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, Noctis had that, but for some ridiculous reason, they didn't give it to Ardyn.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he had the old 1-turn shift cooldown, 2-turn base cooldown.
I mean, does that matter, or it maybe does?
Yeah, because it prevents you from, like, dipping back to base form for 1 turn to use the limit burst for Sword and Peril, and then going straight back to shift.
Alright, but that's not the case in GL, right?
Yeah, in GL, they increased Noctis' jump modifier, and they also shortened the duration of its jump, but they did that for Ardyn too. So, Noctis bursts harder. For Ardyn, they did not boost his jump modifier. Instead, they took the innate element off of it. So now it's just non-elemental damage. So you can imbue him or whatever to make it elemental damage, but this means that, like, in Dark Visions, if the boss is weak to one element, you can use that element without having to worry about him also being dark, or he can just take better advantage of something like Bart's 45% wind amp.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So it's kind of like the interesting.
He's more flexible.
Yeah, exactly. The interesting thing is that even though they're very similar as units, they actually have this big significant difference between them. Where Noctis hits harder if you can use holy or light damage, whereas Ardyn can adapt to, well, I mean, any element, right? And especially the way the DV works, as long as you have the one of your elements is the, well, actually, that's a benefit for Noctis, I guess, too.
Yeah.
But where as long as one of your elements is the element of your party, you're still gonna get the flat 20% buff, which is good.
Does JP have any like sort of light amplifying team members right now?
I know the new Aerith is a big one. I think she does
okay.
45% on her limit.
And I mean, Kyrie before then, right?
The problem is that if you're looking at the last stage of DV, then Ardyn with a 45% amp from Bartz is less damage than Noctis with a 22.5% amp that's halved from Bartz. Like, it's like within a couple percent, but it is still very slightly higher for Noctis, just because Noctis' modifier is higher.
Right.
Yeah, it was basically, it might change a bit, but I think with the Ferris field as well, so like 70% wind amp, then yeah, I think like mixed wind plus light Noctis and just wind Ardyn were basically on par.
Right. So the problem really is that it means Noctis is better when you can use light, and the rest of the time they're even, more or less.
Yeah,
like,
that's a good interpretation.
On the non-final bosses, if they aren't weak to light, I guess Ardyn would be better because they would have built-in light resist.
Yeah.
But
yeah, anything that has light resist higher than other resists, Ardyn should.
But here's the kicker, and this is what Sinzar shared with us in the Newsday podcast. Now, I'm not sure this is actually going to happen on GL, but what Sinzar said is that, well, we're coming into a DV era where actually the final boss is going to have strong elements and weak elements. And apparently the upcoming DV bosses, a couple of them, or like a couple of them in a row, are actually going to be light weak, meaning that Noctis actually has a big advantage in DV lined up for him anyway. So that's a bit of a shame.
Well, I mean, yeah, Ardyn can use light as well, but then, yeah, Noctis still has a fairly substantial
exactly. That's
advantage.
The thing. Like Noctis is going to hit much harder if it is light. However, I still think it's worth saying that, obviously, first of all, Ardyn is not a bad unit. But he's the second strongest damage dealer, if you put it that way, right? Like, he's still absurdly strong. Huge jump in damage.
Maybe third if you include Lunafreya.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I was thinking physical, but that it's a good point.
Yeah, second physical.
So he's still super strong. He still bursts super hard as a Dragoon. So like still a good pickup. It's very nice that he has multi-elements, but Noctis hits a bit harder while being kind of locked to light. So I really feel this is a good trade-off. Like I feel this was a really brilliant design move by them to change something that was literally a carbon copy, which would have been quite boring and split the fan base, into kind of actually making Ardyn worthy of wanting to pull, even if you had Noctis. Not quite, but almost. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like this better than them just mirroring each other directly with the buffs.
Yeah. The other thing to note is that their cards, TMs, and STMRs are also basically identical. Like, you switch the resistances and you switch the killers, and they're the same.
Switch the killers, the resistances.
Yeah.
And I guess the amps on the TMR.
Yeah, so it's dark amp instead of light. It's dark resist instead of light, except on the card where it's light instead of dark.
So can you further explain how they have mirrored a unit? Because this is a very fascinating concept. Can I get more details on like what elements are being switched?
And you take a unit and then you mirror it, and then the unit is mirrored. It's very complicated.
Yeah.
In a world where where they're splitting NV banners, I think this is one way that to keep people interested in the banners is to make them different enough from the previous incarnation, because I think Ardyn as a unit is different enough from JP that I pulled on it, to be honest. But it's also because I like the game. So like I think they're doing a good job, and I want to give them kudos for doing so.
Absolutely, I absolutely agree. I'd like to see more of this. This was actually a pleasant surprise. Shadow, we were sitting there, we were speculating about this in the Newsday pod, and I was a bit skeptical. I'm not gonna lie. In the Newsday pod, I was like, yeah, this is probably a typo, because I don't think they're gonna go to this extent. But I was pleasantly surprised that this happened, and I think this was a great move. Great move.
I agree, and and everyone thought that too. Like we all thought, never trust the news, because like.
Obviously.
We've been burned by it before, but like they never, fixed the typo or announced another news rectifying it and said, oh, I guess we're getting an elementless attack jump, which is good. This is just a straight upgrade over Edgar, which I don't mind.
No, not quite a straight upgrade, because like Edgar has some other different things in his kit that he can make use of. But in terms of
It's like his
burst,
break
certainly.
and spear and barrel.
So yeah, I mean, good unit, pretty cool sprite. Ardyn is pretty badass in the game as well. One of the better antagonists in the Final Fantasy series, because I
He's
feel
probably
like
the most well written.
yeah, I mean, I was gonna say Kefka is pretty much up there, and I know I'm a big Final Fantasy 6 fan, but I also actually do think Kefka is well written. Although, yeah, I guess that means nothing since I'm not, I'm not objective on this at all.
I do still want to say, like, yeah, Gumi put in some work to differentiate the two, but they're still like the two most similar envy units in the game, I think, right?
Sure, yeah.
Like there's still very little that separates them.
If there were any two units to do that, though, these are the two units, I think. It doesn't work for anybody else.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, like
exactly.
it makes sense.
I mean,
Exactly.
it does. It makes sense thematically, but even from like a design standpoint, it just feels lazy from Alam's part. And Gumi like tried to patch it up a bit, but I think Gumi did about as well as could be expected, but it's still disappointing to get two units that aren't meaningfully different.
And to be honest, they could, like, yes, thematically it does make sense in a certain way, but also the two characters have vastly different personalities, and that could have played into the unit design as well.
Yeah.
That could have played a big role in the unit design. So, I don't buy that they had, like, it's not like they had to be equal. It's just that, yeah, okay, it makes sense that they are similar.
But so you know how like right now in JP people are complaining that everyone has such a bare bone kit. Like Sephiroth is a good example, and I think recently the newer units also had a really bare bone kit. But if you look at Ardyn and Noctis, that's where it all kind of started. Like Noctis and Ardyn's Brave Shift is very lean. There's like no fat to it, no useless moves. I mean, almost all of their moves you really want to use it at one point in their rotation.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's starting here. Like, remember Mazurka's Brave Shift
yeah,
has
it's true.
2 jumps.
I mean, it's very much like you shift and you jump. That was very, very specific in her kit. But okay, here's I want to share a fear. I'm happy we went down this lane because I want to share a fear. When we got the first unit in JP whose auto attack was swapped for an ability, I had this fear. I never shared it, but my fear was this is leading towards a meta where you're just gonna be auto attacking with your units because like that's gonna be their strongest skill. And you're not going to have to use anything else. And I was a bit afraid of that because I think that would kill... Like, there are plenty of other games that do this. FFBE should not be one of those, because FFBE has a depth that isn't that. But I'm definitely seeing... Like, we're not... Okay, so that's actually not happening. That did not happen in JP yet. But we're definitely going towards this where kits are very bare bone. Now, and there's this sweet spot between having 2 abilities and 25 that's like... Yeah, you know what I'm trying to say.
There's certainly some damage dealers in the past that have been ludicrously overcomplicated. Looking at
of course,
Halloween units.
I mean, hey, it's not just Halloween unit. I think this was like part of the design where every unit like was almost valued by the number of skills in their kit. Like, look at Jekt, like a super old unit, also had like you were using literally 2 skills, but they had 20.
Yeah, I just mean that, like, Godria and Carton are maybe the single worst defenders for this in the entire game.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed.
Fuck
Absolutely
their
agreed.
kids.
Yeah,
you needed a PhD and a half to do that one.
I mean, even like, even the older ones like Lucius and even Grimlord Sakura. But I mean, Grimlord Sakura is a bit different because if like each of their skills can have some kind of actual niche where you might use it, then that's
exactly.
sort of the good level. But I think stuff like Jet and a lot of those old damage dealers, I think a lot of it is kind of from the like incorrect idea that units would actually be used at like lower rarities and while they were leveling up, and it was still like
I mean
trying to make
that's
impressions
honestly
of that.
100% what they designed for, and it makes sense if you're assuming that a new player starts on level 1, gets a rainbow that will be Jake, right? And then uses him to beat all the story, then it does make sense. But the thing is, the assumption is bad because that happens for nobody. Even a new player is literally going to be able to max their unit ASAP, directly from the start. So there it becomes quite pointless to have 20 abilities in your kit, obviously, that all do kind of the same thing, and then you get the slightly stronger version of it, which is just dumb.
I agree.
Like, I'm completely fine with them making it so that the damage kits are simplified. What worries me about it is that they're they have the simplified damage kits, and they're not like doing anything to make the units interesting in any other way. Like
Exactly.
I know that
Yeah, they
boring
have no
damage dealers are
side
kind of the staple of the
functions.
game, but God, I wish they weren't.
No, I agree. Because it's you can still make a unit interesting. You can still have a unit have niches. And the thing is, I know I remember when Xeno came out and everyone was hating on him for a complicated rotation. And the thing is, I actually enjoy having to use different abilities to, use my units. I don't like the fact that if I'm just going to be repeating every turn, it's just going to suck. And I think I brought this up on a different episode already, but my sweet spot currently, the creme de la creme of unit design so far is SOS Lightning. Prove I'm wrong.
I agree with the statement, actually.
Because,
I think she still has a couple problems with like passives and stuff, but yeah, like skills wise,
yeah, I
she
mean,
has a
like
fairly
all
nice
of
kit.
the exactly
Like a
like all of
nicely
the
designed
abilities
kit.
in her base form are going to be used in some way. Like maybe not in your standard damage rotation, but you have different skills for different uses in her kit, and it's not overloaded to the fact where you're like, oh, why are these 5 chaining abilities here? And then she does something entirely different in her Brave Shift, which is also really cool, and again, not overloaded. So that's like the perfect level for me, where I still have to kind of think and
I do want to talk. There's another topic we're going to cover a bit later that's about the simplification of units. But first off, I think we should talk about the Chronicle battle.
No, but before we move on to that, I do want to touch on this because it's not just Ardyn, but Ardyn is one of the many characters of this. But I feel like we come to a point in this game where they're just spoiling things out of like this. I think started with a lot of like the CG units, but like there's a lot of spoilers within the move names or within the implications of them having a duplicate kit, or if you think about FF13 MV banners like SOS Lightning or even Snow, they're it's no longer a surprise, but you could say it's an old game. But I feel like them spoiling their own game's endings or their slight little twists kind of feels sad. But that's just me.
well, it's
I
not.
think not including content that does that would be like very limiting though, and would mean like you couldn't have a lot
Well,
of the
that's
cool stuff
true,
from
I
but
also
those
think
games
that by and
in
large, the people that are
FFBE.
playing these games are people that have already played the Final Fantasy games in question, or kind of know that maybe spoilers for Final Fantasy games they haven't played come with the territory. Because these are games that came out years ago, and 15 is a little more recent than most. But even so, when did it come out? I don't even know. 2016.
it's 3 years ago. It's about 3 years ago.
2018. Okay.
And yeah, I do agree that like this, it's mostly for FF fans and they've either played it or know the spoilers. But like they tread really weird mid ground. Like for example, Noctis. Technically, this should be Old Man Noctis, and I've said this before. The way that Noctis, it looks like it's supposed to be Old Man Noctis, but they don't do Old Man Noctis because either they are afraid of spoilers or they think younger Noctis sells better.
Yeah, I think that's actually the case. I think just younger Noctis.
Yeah,
he-
I think it might be
he
more
just
of a
vibes
selling
better.
point.
It did come out in 2016.
Oh, was it
But,
2016? Wow.
Or maybe they didn't have like a model for
Yeah.
CG Old Man Noctis
But I
that
do
was high enough
think
quality
that,
or something.
like in this case, if you haven't played Final Fantasy 15 and the DLCs, you're just gonna see this as lazy unit design. I don't think this is gonna be seen as a spoiler, or at least I wouldn't see it as a spoiler. Going into this game blind and seeing, oh look, Ardyn and Noctis have the same abilities, and wow, these passives are weirdly named. But I would just assume it was just lazy.
Maybe.
And not read too much into it, right?
The biggest offender I think ever was FF14 when they released CG Y'shtola, because Y'shtola becoming a black mage is technically a Shadowbringer spoiler and a surprise.
Oh, come on. It's an MMO.
So-
You can't spoil an MMO. That's literally impossible.
You can. You'd be surprised.
Yeah, I guess, like, I haven't played Final Fantasy 14 enough to know, but, I mean, okay, obviously
Final
you can
Fantasy
spoil an
14
MMO.
is like one of the only MMOs I've ever played where people A, care about the story, and B, care about spoilers. Like to the point that if you are in a dungeon and you start to spoil the story, people will yell at you.
Really? Huh. Sounds like my kind of game. I should play that more. I just don't have time. So this is a very interesting Final Fantasy 14 podcast, but like Muspel, you wanted to move on to another topic, right?
Yeah, we can talk about the Chronicle battle for a minute. Like not the battle itself, but there's an item or two from it that are like I guess we should mention them. There's a body armor with 50 attack and a 20% attack passive, which is great.
It's good. Yeah. It's
That's
STMR level.
Yeah. It also has 50% true dual wield for Final Fantasy 15 units. And there's a few good ones of those right now. So you can get you can get as many copies of this as you want. I would get at least
I think
one,
part of the problem
maybe
with that,
two if you want.
Yeah. I mean, the like just clearing each stage once gives you more than enough for one and almost
There's
enough
also
for
a
two.
spear, which is, it's got like 155 attack, and then it has 100% jump damage, so it's fine, I guess.
Yeah, some of them, or like Aranea might want it for.
Again, this is an item that has 50%
gear.
true dual wield for Final Fantasy 15 units only. So that's not bad, but this one is certainly the less exciting of the two items, in my opinion.
I think part of the problem with the clothes though is like Noctis and Ardyn have clothes as their STMR, and Aranea can't equip them natively.
but like for newer
but
players,
again, they are STMR.
And then most of the rest you aren't.
And it's still on.
Yeah,
exactly.
it's
It's still an
decent as a
STMR
50
tier clothes
attack
item, so it's good in regardless, right? You want it.
Yeah.
So who wants it of the FF15 units? Because I know that Noctis and Ardyn, they want their own.
So Gladio Brave Shift wants it.
I guess Nyx and Prompto.
Nyx and Prompto?
It's I'm sure it's technically best in slot for Nyx and Prompto and Noctis. Like not Cobalt Blade Noctis, but the other Noctis, and also the other Noctis.
Why are we dissing Gladio's Brave Shift though?
Because Gladio should not be wearing a shirt.
Well, that's actually a surprisingly good point, Muspel. It's like touche. I can't
argue with that.
I can't say anything.
Muspel, you're going down the path I can't follow. Oh, that was out of nowhere.
I think that's really all there is to say about the Chronicle battle.
It's a path I don't
Yeah,
want
I mean,
to follow.
it's decent to play through because you get 1,000 lapis and you get a ton of the shards. Or not shards. Pogs? What do we call them nowadays? What's the actual name?
Pogs.
Pogs, okay.
The official name is Insignia, but we call
It's
it
Pogs.
Technically, it's
Pogs. Yeah, so it's just good to play through anyway, and as Dream said, you get enough for one close item, so it's not like a huge effort on your end anyway. You should just get one of them, and yeah, that's it. Because the thing about Ardyn, I guess we didn't mention it, we did say it on the Newsday podcast, but Ardyn also wants 2 of CP Noctis's STMR.
Yeah.
And he wants them farmed from, obviously, CB's Noctis Chronicle battle. So Ardyn actually doesn't need anything from this Chronicle battle. Unless you want the clothes for him, obviously. But yeah, you're probably going to get this STMR.
But the other thing that I was mentioning earlier that we were going to move on to is in JP recently, they done something new that we haven't seen before. And a lot of people that have followed the news probably know about this already. But the new unit, Narshe Moogle Mog, his TM, restores MP as you walk around in explorations.
Wow, so overpowered.
Finally.
How are they balancing this?
I was waiting so long
an
for them to
interesting
fix
place to
MP
go.
problems in explorations. Like, that has been the most overlooked place in the game. Come on, honestly.
Like,
About fucking time.
This is actually a pass we've seen before.
I mean,
this
honestly,
one is 8 MP every step. Like, that's a lot.
8
That's
whole
a lot.
MP?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think that can possibly actually compete with Rem's STMR of
That's a
having
good
the
point.
auto regen.
Hey, hold on. This takes me just back with something. I just want to walk down memory lane with you all and see if we're vibing on this. But remember back in the day when you had to count the number of encounters you've done in an exploration that you're farming because there was this limit to the amount of encounters per exploration? Yeah. Oh my god, that was good. That was good. Good times.
Yeah, you had to do your 15 encounters in area
Right.
1.
Which was so weird that there was
in
a
area
cap
2.
per area, but that was what it was, and you had to fully farm it.
Yeah. Well, I suppose they probably did that. So
Over-farming?
They were probably worried about having infinite
Yeah, exactly.
grinding
Now that
with a set amount of
Skullman has stopped
energy.
yelling at clouds, have finished yelling at clouds, and all of the new players that listen to the podcast have already stopped listening.
Yeah.
We can talk about the actual new thing, which is JP introduced. They released a unit, Samurai Scion. He's an NV without a Brave Shift.
Ooh. But he does have his own mechanic, right, Muspel?
Yeah, he has an LB that upgrades when he. I forget how it works exactly. I think it's after a certain number of turns.
a super LB, yeah, it's like a turn cool. It basically works like a cooldown ability.
He has a different LB after 3 turns, I think. I'm not super sure, but like after
It's like
X
3
turns,
or 4 turns, he gets a really, really strong LB.
I think it's 5 turns at EX1,
Right,
4 at EX2, and 3 at EX3.
and it's
The cooldown
an
reduces.
entirely different LB though. Once like that turn count hits, which is an exciting new mechanic in that sense, but also a big implication for brave shifts. I was saying before the pod started, and I'm gonna share it now too. Like let's not put too much weight onto this, because Alim are really good at experimenting and Gumi are really good at not bringing bad experiments to GL. So
Yeah, remember the
let's see
whole
what's gonna
Xyle
happen.
experiment and how that turned out?
Yeah, we still have. Yeah, we might
Well, we
actually
still
get
haven't gone
Xyle.
to
But
that.
No,
but
what I'm
they're-
saying is that they
they're-
haven't
for
repeated it
GL,
since, is what I
but
mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, but I've said this before. I actually think Alim is in a good spot when it comes to experimentation. They are brave. They do a lot of experiments and try different things in the game, and this might be one of them. This might actually be a good thing. I don't know.
I like it a lot, actually.
I mean, we've always said that like not every unit needs a brave shift. So
Wait,
this
so
is
Muscle,
like
do you like
just
it?
more
So
room for
what do you like
design.
about it
So-
in that
so-
sense?
Let me put it this way. It's not that I specifically like a unit not having a brave shift. I like the idea that not every unit has to have a brave shift. We've had a lot of units in the past where their shift and their base form are the same role, and they don't really have any clear idea of what the difference between them should be. So it's just that the unit has to shift back and forth for no reason, and the rotation is a pain in the ass, and you have to gear them twice. And
Yeah, and often, Brave Shift is actually the
Yeah.
form you need, right, to actually utilize the unit, because they want to sell copies, they want to sell shards, so you should get it. And this was an interesting way, because here you're still rewarded for going EX1, 2, 3, because as Dream mentioned before, the cooldown to your Super LB gets shorter the bigger EX level you have. So it still kind of gives you an incentive to go further up, but it doesn't lock the unit's utility behind EX1.
I saw people complaining that Alim's getting lazy with the stripped down kits. Like that was the first initial response I saw on Reddit, and that I never got that, purely because I feel like a lot of NVs are actually, like, if you think about Zidane, Zidane's a great example. He's only brave shifting like 3 turns, and he has like a 4-turn cooldown. That sounds like an LB to me, but that's like, is like, I feel like this is sort of a evolution of that sort of design idea where, sorry.
Don't talk to me about Zidane's kit.
Oh.
But thematically, like
talk
Shadow,
to me
you were
about
talking about
Zidane's
thematically before, right?
I don't
Thematically,
like it.
this actually fits, right? Because
Yeah,
Zidane in
thematically, it
Final
just
Fantasy
makes
9
sense
would be transing, right? And
Yeah.
then he gets a different kit.
But this LB thing being, if you wait a certain turns and you get a powerful LB, that I think makes sense for a lot of units. I can think of a few units that would make sense actually for.
I'm sorry, I've never played Final Fantasy 9. I'm just now looking at Zidane's brave shift sprite. Why does he look like a stripper?
So he's
if you look at the antagonist of the game, she is
I'm
a
sorry,
Britney Spears clone.
Never mind, let's move on.
Anyway, yeah, I think Super LB is also just nice design room for having those really strong LBs that, like, they don't have to worry about them being spammable with Entrust.
I mean,
And
in
that,
general,
like,
I am
creates
actually
a bit of design room without having to worry about weird.
and I
like,
actually
active
agree with you,
cooldown
Muspel, on
durations.
the reasoning behind, like, hey, it's nice that not every unit has to have a brave shift. I welcome having a bit more variation in how units work, to be honest. Like, we just need less of straightforward damage dealer 15 and more a bit of unique stuff.
Yeah. The problem I have is that this is coming at the same time that they're making dumbed
I
down
hope-
damage kits. So not only are the units simplistic, but they're simplistic without even the potential for anything in their shift. And there's in a vacuum, I think not every unit having a shift is a good idea. In practice, I'm concerned that it's just Alim trying to cut down on development time.
Maybe. I mean, not just, I guess, cut down on development time. Units with problematically big kits are also bad and overwhelming for new players, because as a new player, you're going to be coming in and you're going to be like, what the fuck is this? And you might lose your interest, because FFBE is a complex game. So it's good that they build mechanics that make it easier for new players to understand the game and to use a character well. But you can do that without chastising the unit as well. Like, again, I think fucking SOS Lightning is the perfect example of how you do this well.
I just wish that when they introduce new mechanics like this, like the first unit that uses it would be a good example of what the system can do. Like, Cyan is just a boring damage dealer. There's nothing there to talk about. Like Cloud, the first NV unit was a damage dealer who was a damage dealer in both forms. There was nothing there. And I wish like when they introduce Shift, when they introduce these new limit burst units, when they do whatever new thing, they should pick one of the few units where they actually do something interesting with it, just to like kind of show people like, hey, this is why we're doing this.
Exactly. Yeah, no, fully agreed. Again, going back to SOS Lightning, but also other units where the shift makes sense and matters and brings you depth to the game.
I mean, from a kit perspective, I would say, like, for the NV launch, Tifa was actually, like, a pretty good example for, like, the limited duration shifts.
One thing that I think they kind of designed themselves into another corner is vision cards are shared between the shifts. So if vision cards are shared between the shifts, they can't really like veer too far off into what they do on their normal or brave shift because of the shared stats.
It depends on what rules we're talking about. Like if it's healer or support.
If it's two different forms,
those units don't really
both
care about
require
their stats, so they
stats.
can use whatever card, and it doesn't matter. But yeah, you can't go between damage dealer and tank or between mage and physical typically.
Again, it very much depends on the card. Like, for instance, for SOS Lightning, they tried fixing that by giving her a hybrid card. It's actually a very strong card, but it has both the stats.
But that's the thing.
On the card.
By giving her a hybrid card, technically they give her an unoptimal card for both, right?
Yeah,
because
but in her case, it's actually not, because like I think that she has like 90 or 80 to both, so it's still a very strong card. But I know what you're saying.
Losing 20 to 30 base attack and magic, that comes out to be like a lot when you include buffs. You're looking at 150 to 200, right?
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong that it's not as optimal as it could have been.
Like that.
And I don't really see the reason why we couldn't have different vision cards in different forms. It would actually just make a lot of sense, especially for units like, I don't know, Snow or any other unit that, you know, really can't use one vision card if they're going to do both roles. Although I guess that case is also so rare. I mean, even for SOS Lightning, you're like, she's actually used in one form. You're not swapping between them. And I like that more. Same with Aerith. You're using her in one form. So in that case, I think it's fine, really. Like, it's not like you're going to enter a battle with Snow and going to be like, oh, I'm going to do both magic and physical tanking in this fight. Because those fights are pretty rare to begin with. I mean, is there even one?
Not for a long time. Most recent one was Coral.
One or two.
Yeah, so hey.
We put more effort into this podcast than Gumi put their effort into an event this week.
That is true. We actually, hey, listen, listeners, if you're still with us after 40 minutes, God bless your soul. But also, hey, you know, like, this was an empty banner, and we're still here fighting to produce content.
I mean, there's the spring item world that has some unique
sure,
80% for weapons that don't matter.
Shit weapons. Yeah. I think we've literally
got a one-handed axe.
I think we've
for all
milked
those
this bull
one-handed axe users.
to the finishing line.
That's the end of the episode right there.
Before we end. No. There's one small thing I forgot to complain about regarding Ardyn. Why doesn't his LB chain with Noctis? I feel like that should happen. But yeah.
Just their enemy.
No.
It just
irks me that. Yeah. Anyways,
you're not going to be using them together anyway.
Oh yeah, we didn't get that.
Also, we didn't get Crown Prince Noctis enhancements. Damn it! Because Gumi does not like upgrading old things. They only focus on new banners and.
You do wonder what happens with enhancements, because at one point it's cancelled, and at one point it's not cancelled until it's cancelled again, and then it's now cancelled.
You seem surprised by the fact that they don't really have a strategy or direction for the game. I mean, it shouldn't be surprising.
That one.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised. I'm just disappointed.
I mean, we're all still enjoying the game, right? But would be nice with some more vision behind it, maybe, I guess. Ooh, Vision. War of the Visions. Ah, there you go.
No.
Yeah. I mean, we just need to end this fucking episode. Like, this is going too far. So yeah, bye everyone.